New York and on the new Hot 97 app. Ebro in the morning on Hot 97.
Ebro in the morning. Laura Stiles is here. Rosenberg's on some sports talk.
Yes.
Mission journey. So you didn't get to see Rosenberg today. Give it up. This is my sister right here.
What's up?
AJ Johnson. Give it up one time.
I'm in New York, y'all.
Now introduce us to your friend here.
Yeah, man, listen, Patricia Cuffie-Jones is one of the most fabulous boss creators, writers, producer, directors. A lot of women aren't doing that, women of color, but this one is killing the game. Bestie, put me in this show. Patricia, say hey.
Hey, everybody.
We got, me and AJ, we've been to Ghana. We got a whole thing we're about to get into. So we're about to go straight Africa in a minute.
Yeah.
All right, but
So before we do that, we got to talk
Good.
about Stuck With You.
Let's
the
talk
show.
about the
With
show.
You, yes. It's a new show streaming right now on Urban Movie Channel. And it's about a celebrity couple who, in front of the camera, they're the prototype of a successful couple, but behind closed doors, actually separated, living completely different lives. So just the pressure of trying to feed into what social media thinks your life is versus what the life really is.
Very
Pretty
common.
much Instagram every day.
Yeah.
It's very common.
Right.
And even before Instagram, let's be honest, there was a lot of people in relationships in their church, in the community or whatever that,
Right.
Absolutely.
they go out every day, go to work. I'm married, I'm with this, boy. They go home and they are not together in
They're
their
not
lives. They're
together,
doing it
they're
for the
not
family,
happy.
they're doing it for the kids, they're doing it for
Exactly.
everybody else.
And this
AJ.
couple's doing it for the brand.
Who do you play on the show?
I was gonna say, and I play Stephanie, their publicist. So, and I'm also their best friend from like college days.
Okay.
So I help them navigate what's real, whether it's life, relationship, the check. What are we after? So
Right,
I keep it real. Hard for me to do, right?
Speaking of college, well, no, not at all. Speaking of college, your career from school days to now, right?
Crazy.
Well, not crazy. I think it's A, it's amazing. B, when you walked in, you were like, "How you doing?" I was like, "Look, I'm trying to stay in the game. 30 years in doing this, I'm trying to make sure."
Can you believe we are
still here?
started from 30 years ago and now we're here?
Yeah. Tell me for you, and for people watching, right? Because now more than ever, there's more outlets,
Yes.
right? So you have these different apps, you have the streaming services, you have a lot of content that Black, Latino women are able to write, direct, find financing for, and put out in multiple ways, which
Exactly.
is completely new. But how do you see that? I mean, it's got to be a phenomenal thing for you to see things get to this point.
Yeah, I mean, from school days as my beginning and then house party and the rollout to here, I was even talking about this morning, like the fact that there's so many outlets. There used to be like big projects and small projects. There were films and TV. Or even TV, there was network and then cable. Like, HBO, Showtime was like the cable stuff. And you wanted to be on ABC, NBC, CBS. Now there's so many outlets, there's no rules. There's no such thing as big, small. It's like if you're in the game and you're working and you're on camera or on the mic, then you're in it.
Right.
And I love that because if you're really about your business, then there's no real platform you should chase. Like, for me as an actress, I could do it on camera, I could do it in the park. I could teach, or I could just, go to a kid's school and speak on it because that's my passion. That's my purpose in my heart. So, there's also celebrity versus the true talent. So which do you want? I think if you want to really be in the game, like us for 30 years, you got to really work on your skill set, study the rules of the game, play it your way, and just know that, that's what keeps you lasting.
What challenges did you really confront in the transitions of the game, right? After,
Yeah.
I mean, you were phenomenal in Baby Boy, right?
Aw, thank you,
Everybody
brother.
loves you from that, right? Obviously, House Party was an amazing role, but you've done Sister Act. You were in Inkwell. What were your challenges that you had to navigate staying in the game?
Well, it's interesting you asked that because I found a couple. I mean, how much time do we have? Like, the biggest one is I found that I had a hard time staying happy. To be honest, so much of the business is chasing the next gig. I remember when I got on the set of Baby Boy, the first day I was shooting, the publicists that were around covering our first day of shooting, because it was a big project. People knew that we were digging in deep. So there was, media around and they were like, so what's next? And I was like, me getting through this next scene.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Is next. But, just the pressures of, once you get a job and you're trying to focus on doing a phenomenal job and hopefully making the project a success, from what you bring to the team, and everybody's looking at what's next. That's a pressure. And so I had other passions, again, coming from Spelman with my education and just other passions, period, in my life. I just said, I'm going to take a sidestep and do some other things I love. Build a business, build my own brand where it's my thing. Because my parents always said, own something, please. You know, if your last name's not Paramount or Sony, we don't want to hear about it. And so I said, well, let me step aside and just, build something. And I never knew how long it would be before I came back on camera as an actress, but I wanted to make sure that I established something that was successful and made me happy. And now what's awesome is that I get to act in the fun of it. Now I'm just doing it for fun. It's not a career, obligation. It's not that I'm looking to stay hot. It's not like I'm looking for the next big thing. I'm not chasing a trophy. I'm doing it for fun. And now I'm seeing that the projects I really want to do, working with friends, great writers, directors, that's what I'm after. And it's been amazing so far. I did a movie last year for TV1 called Son of the Father. This was probably the second thing that I love. So I'm having a ball.
And also, you become it's much more than myself. You're where I want to be. Someone who goes back to Africa, takes people back to Africa, specifically Ghana, reconnect spiritually and culturally, right? You've been back probably 4 or 5 times since it's been 8.
8 times in 2019 since we were there together in December.
So that was when we were together was your first.
My first time to the continent and Ghana.
And you went back 8 times.
In 2019 alone.
And talk about what you found when you got there.
Yeah.
And then B, what's compelling you to keep returning to Ghana?
Okay, I'm going to do that, and I have a question for you, because you're one of the few people that was there with me from the beginning, and so I want to ask you a question about that, too. Okay. When I got there, straight off the plane, I realized a different level, elevated level of who I was as a Black woman, the value that I possessed just because I was of African descent, the welcome that we received, the camaraderie from the women, the respect from the men. I had never experienced anything like that. And then the history lessons that I personally was never introduced to as an American, in school, with my family, with friends, just the history of us as a people and the transatlantic slave trade. And then understanding, because it was the year of return, which honestly, I didn't know much about when we got there, but then learning what it really meant that 400 years later, here we are. Coming home. And so for me, I just felt like that carried such a responsibility to not only educate the rest of us who may be like me, who didn't know anything when I left. I just felt this heavy responsibility, not only to come back to America to share the experience and how I felt spiritually, mentally, the physical transformations. I mean, just the music is different, the food is different. Everything just took me on to another level. And I promised myself that trip. I said, you know what? I'm going to walk in this power and see what happens all over the world, not just back in America, but I've been given a freedom, a spiritual freedom to be the powerful sister I am. And what does that look like? I didn't know then, so I just said, well, we'll see. I had no idea I was going to go back so many times.
I think one of the most powerful points that you just made is the lack of education and understanding your roots. Because even, it's funny because I've had these conversations with my international friends who don't necessarily, because one of my friends that's Filipino but born and raised in Australia. She's like, why? She's like, I'm sorry, but why do Black folks call themselves African Americans? Why not Ghanaian American?
Right.
Why not? I was like, well, because of the slave, because of slavery. And then she was like, she's like, do you know that we've never learned anything about slavery?
Right.
She's like, it took me as an adult to even understand the concept because we were clueless. But then even here in the United States, they gloss over slavery in history classes.
In the UK,
barely
in the
know
United
anything.
States.
I mean, I have a whole different appreciation even for us as sisters because, I grew up in Jersey, so the cultural differences are not necessarily new to me, but also understanding that we all are descendants from the continent to some degree, and then the ships stop different places.
Right.
So we could be cousins. We could be sisters. So now, my whole appreciation for us in our cultural differences, now I operate from understanding we could be related in the same. So how does that change how I vibe with you?
Right.
It shifted me. I say it shifted me so deep, and it's starting to sound corny because people say, what does that mean? But it did. Like, I'm a whole different person from the inside out because I now understand, having stepped on the continent, having made friends, having worked there, and still doing projects and growing, and now what's called the Beyond the Return.
That's right.
It's even more of a responsibility. It's like I returned, I'm learning, I'm vibing, I'm growing. But now what do I do? What happens for me beyond my return? Woo!
It's a lot.
Brother.
Well, and, I think about the cultural impact for individuals who, I was raised in a home that, I have a Jewish mother and a Black father,
Right.
but Pan-Africanism and studying Africa and the history or Egyptology or, Black consciousness and, revolution. These are
Right.
concepts that in the Bay Area, Oakland, California,
Right.
that's
Right.
I went to summer school at Malcolm X school. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
At elementary school, or you know what I mean. These things happen. So the conversation isn't foreign for me to look out into the world and say what's out there and how do I connect. Like
Right.
that's something I've been trying to figure out for a while. So when Bozema and Boris, went together as a family and said, "Hey, we're going to do this thing," and I was on the trip where we took 90-something people back, and the following year we took, I don't know, was it 400 or 500 people?
Definitely over the first 90.
Just being a part of a community, a collective that's trying to reconnect people to a consciousness and culture that is our origin was just a dream come true for me. I had zero expectations. I didn't know that there was going to end up being these giant festivals happening. People were going to, after the first year we went, the next year we went, they built clubs on the beach with swimming pools, and there was day parties everywhere. And that wasn't our, we had no idea.
Right, none.
No,
But
didn't know I was going to meet the president. Right? Didn't know I was going to be at the president's house.
Yeah, because it's not just meeting President Adu. It's hanging out with him. It's cocktail sips.
Knowing his daughters. I know the president's daughters.
Yeah, hanging out, talking, like how can we come together, which helped me create the Bridge to Better, which is my organization that whatever that means. And it's not just Africa. I'm learning that in 2020. I thought it was going to be bridging Africa and America any way I could, whether it's fashion, whether it's educational projects, better health. But now I'm learning it's bigger than that, because it may be you and I doing a women empowerment thing where we never would have thought about it before.
Right.
So it's the bridge of understanding. Culturally, we're different because of our history, but we shouldn't be different because of our souls. So what do we do if we come together? It'd be crazy if we came together. So that's one of the things I'm working on. But everything's different. Like you said, meeting the president, learning the history of our names, all stuff that I never knew. And I try not to say too much because I want people to have their own experience. So that's another reason why I'm like, come with me, come with us, because anything I say, it's still not going to do it justice.
Yeah, and it's, you don't even recognize as a Black American the power of knowing your story, right? And I mean, as a kid, your parents talk to you about tradition and family and making sure you stay connected with your family.
Right.
You don't really realize how important that center is and that kind of that grounding is, and the need to share, right? Now and then when you have a kid, if you're not prepared, like I have a 5-year-old that's like, so what was your grandfather like?
Right.
And where are you guys from? And so where am I from? And then having to go to school with kids who might be closer to their heritage, right? So it might be her best friend at school might be a girl whose parents are from India.
Right.
They have a way to articulate their spirituality. It's intact.
I agree.
Black Americans have to kind of piecemeal and patchwork this story together because you don't know people past maybe your great-grandparents.
Right.
Great-greats, it's like, wow, your great-great-great stories is like, whoa, wait.
That's what
Tell
I'm
us
saying.
more.
Like,
you go to Africa, you meet people, they can run you back 300, 400 years.
Right.
Tell you all the wars, all the politics, the land they own, what this one did, who this person was. They know the whole thing.
When you walk 20 minutes in the Africa heat, because as Americans we jiggle, it's Africa hot, but a lot of us have never been until you go to Ghana or Africa, and it's a hot that you don't even understand compared to, I thought Jersey was hot, I thought Atlanta was hot. Listen, Ghana is a heat that's different, and then to understand that our ancestors were walked barefoot, unclothed for 6 weeks before they were even enslaved. I mean, listen, when you really get there and see and feel, I know for me, I watch my complaints now. Oh, I'm hot. Oh, I'm tired. Mitch, no, you're not. That's not hot and tired. But I was going to ask you, as an African descendant male, I know your background. Do you still feel changed? Like how for a man was it for you?
Absolutely. I feel, for me, it's always been about.
Because was that your first time?
That was my first time.
So it's both of our first times.
It was the first time. For me, I had been to Morocco, but I had never been to South Africa yet because I had problems with politics there. And there's places that in Africa I don't want to go because I have issues with maybe the way the government's running things, or the way the culture's been manipulated in some ways. So I've stayed away from certain countries in Africa because I never wanted to go to Africa and be disappointed.
Okay.
Right? And Ghana was always a Pan-African nation, the way it was set up since they liberated it. And Kwame Nkrumah was always about black people in the diaspora. So it was almost a dream for me to know people and know, because also traveling to a place and not knowing who to talk to or where to go or whatever. So it was a dream come true for that to happen for me. So in that way, I feel changed, that I'm even a part of something that has reconnected people with something greater than this American experience. And so that's the other piece for me that was always important, was because my mother's Jewish, right?
Yes.
So Passover comes around every year. Jews get together and they make sure to not forget when
The
Jews
food, the
were in
prayers.
slavery, right?
Yes.
And so seeing that black Americans are even being told to forget or to get over it, or not being given the information,
you better teach it,
or the information being hidden, always worked on my energy in a way that was like, nah, we're gonna reconnect this and we're gonna do this. I don't know how,
Right.
but it's gonna happen. So I've always been on that page.
Yeah.
So I'm changed in a way that it's like something beyond my wildest imagination actually took place in my lifetime. This last trip, and I don't know if I said it to Laura, but I said it to a bunch of people, was I was there at a 4-day festival on the beach in Africa, watching some of the biggest artists in the world perform to people who are from Africa and either had moved and come back to celebrate, or people who had never been to Africa ever and only came for a festival. Mm-hmm. That, for me, was like, wait, people are just coming to Africa. We on the beach. The ocean's right there. They got a full-fledged Coachella happening.
Yeah.
Size, you know what I mean? And there's food, and it's amazing. And I was like, if it's like this for the next 20 years, and we just continue to come and celebrate, this is monumental.
Yeah.
And for nations that are literally only 67 years old.
Right.
These are nations that are just figuring it out.
Well, you know, I want to make sure people understand too, for my returns, it wasn't just social and I was like in love with Ghana. It was, I believe, that my desire when I came home was, how can I make a difference? Like, what can I do? I went for a birthday turn-up. You know that. Mm-hmm. I was there for New Year's, a birthday turn-up.
Right.
And all of a sudden, it was like, wait, the life shift wasn't the plan. Like, was not the plan. But now that it's happening, what does this mean? Like, what am I being called to do? And so that's where I said, okay, I think I'm being used as a bridge between cultures on many levels that I may not know yet. And since then, like, I went and hosted Panifest last July. Yep. I was one of the main speakers of the Emancipation Day. Now, I mean, it's one thing to be Emancipation Day here in the States, but Emancipation Day in Africa, like, that was a whole different thing for me. And now, moving forward into 2020, I'm partnering with the U.S. Embassy in Ghana to do some projects. So this is not even basically from even my design. This is like phone calls, or I'm at a meeting, or at dinner, and they say, hey, we see what you're doing. We love your love for Ghana. Would you be interested in?
Let me ask you this. Did you find that it's interesting that people on the continent, and I found this in South Africa as well as in Ghana, when I talked about my level of interest in reconnecting, I got asked often, like, why? Why is it so important to you? From Africans, like, they didn't, and a lot of young people specifically, not the old elders, but the young people specifically would go, but, like, why are you so into it? Right. And now maybe that's because of my complexion and me being mixed, or they just assume.
I got it too. I got it too.
No, because I think because when the guys from Afrochella were here, remember, they grew up getting picked on. They were like, Africa was full of, when we heard of Africa, it was nothing but propaganda.
Right.
All you see was poverty and the negative news. So even my friends who are African, they were like, it wasn't cool to identify too much. I had to kind of play those lines and be more American.
So deep.
Because I was bullied. I was ashamed.
Now, plot twist. You was in school days. That era, we was wearing Africa medallions.
Right.
And the kente cloth prints were a part of the African-American college. Remember, everybody used to rock the hoodies.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So that
HBCUs.
Spike Lee was working in those prints into the films.
But that's in your world. There's many other worlds where kids weren't appreciated or celebrated for their heritage. They had to deal with that hardship of not loving who they were because they were being bullied.
I did a master class, which is another thing that, just trying to understand in the entertainment sector, what our differences were and what had to happen to bring us closer in terms of content, skill set, that whole thing. And I learned more than anything entertainment driven, I learned that it sounds silly, but if you think about it, our story as African Americans is different than the African story on their side. Right. We both have a story.
Right.
We both are emotionally distraught from the experience, but we've never had the conversations.
That's right.
Isn't that deep? We've never come together to talk about.
Where would they happen?
Well, exactly. And who would start it to say, well, how's your feeling? Because, as African Americans, our ancestors were kidnapped, displaced, and now we're the survivors of a 400-year slave trade, and now we're back. How do you feel? And they're like, a lot of times you get off the plane and they say, I'm so sorry. Because, they're feeling like, thank you for coming home, but we started this. It's deep. It's deep, but I love I love the fact that the conversations are happening. And you, my dear sir, my dear brother, I think, and I'm gonna predict this for you and me too, I think we're gonna go back and probably together where it's not gonna be that you don't want to be disappointed by Africa. I think you're being sent to change it.
Oh, for sure. That's gone. That feeling of me feeling
See, there we
disappointed.
go.
That's been gone.
Right.
That was gone when I decided to go with Bozema and Boris, and I understood and started to learn what Akufo-Addo was doing.
Yes.
And the work that's being done on infrastructure and reinvesting in the nation
development, all of it.
And just even voting and voting rights and policy change and public education happening in Ghana.
You're needed.
There's a lot of things happening, right? And so my expectation is very high for Ghana.
I
you know
love
what
it.
I mean?
And your involvement in it.
Yeah. No, I'm absolutely helping in any way I can, in any way that I'm asked to with regard to that. So.
I love that over the years, it's so crazy that that's what connects us again.
Yeah.
Because we've known each other for a long time.
Yeah,
but isn't
man.
it crazy that Africa is what really connects us again?
No, it's phenomenal, man. Shout to Africa.
Yeah.
and Nigeria and Ghana and everybody else.
All of it,
Togo,
the continent.
Benin, everybody.
The whole continent.
South Africa, too.
So I'm on my way back in March and hoping to see Senegal. I went and saw Cote d'Ivoire because I speak fluent French. Yeah. So I went to Cote d'Ivoire this last Christmas after the holiday.
Okay.
And now I'm on my way back to do some work and hopefully going to see Senegal.
Senegal is supposedly amazing. Akon's been trying to get me to go for so long.
Yeah, well, I'll send you pictures and say where you at.
I heard the beaches are incredible there.
Where you at, bro?
Yeah.
Where you at?
Did you now this year of return is now being called Beyond Return. Are you planning to go back again in December?
Yeah, well, I can't predict December, but I'm getting ready to go back to do some work for a month in March.
Got it.
So if this
and
year,
that's independent. That's right around Independence Day. Independence Day is in March.
And March is Women's History Month. Like, listen, I don't know what's getting ready to happen, and I'm so excited about the unknown. Because when I tell you last year was a birthday turn up, and now here I am, like
an ambassador.
Listen,
Literally.
You know what I mean? Like I don't know what's gonna happen by December. Who knows where I'll be and what I'll be doing? But I claimed more territory in Africa. So the fact that it's not even 60 days into the year. And I'm getting ready to do Ghana again, Ivory Coast already, and Senegal coming up. Like, you know what I'm saying? What's going on in my life?
It's beautiful.
Man, listen.
This is AJ Johnson. Also, what's going on in her life is Stuck With You on the Urban Movie Channel network that you could check out. It was a pleasure meeting you.
Same here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming. AJ, it was great to see you, too.
I love you.
I love you, too. Give it up,
Thank you for
AJ
having
Johnson.
me.
Ladies and gentlemen.